there's an election coming up, and there's a lot of tax things that could be changing. And so what better way to do this than to just really break it down in two categories? And we're going to say, hey, we've got this person and we've got this person. Here's what they're proposing. How could it affect your dough? Because ultimately, that's what we really want to think about, right? That's what we're talk about here.
And then join us November 3rd. We're actually doing a election night special live stream. I think we're starting around 8 o'clock. I've got no short of 50 slides to go over finance and politics. We're going to go through all of it, man. While we watch the election together, grab a drink, come hang out,
Yeah, we're not going to fight. We're not going to get mad. We're going to have a good time.
Now, we all know, even though who Eric's voting for, we're going to let him go on that one. You know what I mean? We're going to let him slide.
I don't know where that's leaning at all, because I'm wholeheartedly on one side of this. All right. But you know what? I support other views on everything too. All right.
Well, so like I said before, man, vote for who you need to vote for. We can still be friends. You know what I mean?
That's 100%. That's exactly what it should be. Yeah. All right. So with that, let's talk about finances though, because that's really what we want to talk about when it comes to this election, because it could change the dollars in your pocket. And so start with corporate taxes. Corporate taxes is one that's really not going to maybe affect you immediately, but it's something that we're looking at with, we've got two different sides here. We've got Harris, who's proposing a corporate tax rate from 21 to 28%. They're raising the corporate rate there. Trump's saying lower the corporate rate 21 to 15 for companies that produce in the U.S. He's big on that side of it, really wanting to talk about producing in the U.S. So there will be some rules that come into play there. But corporate tax may not, like I say, affect you immediately in your pocket. But what you've got to realize is that if corporations are paying more in taxes, they're focused on answering to their owners or the stock, or the people who own the stock. Do you own the stock of the company? Well, if that's the case, then they want to make sure they're pushing out profits to the owners, making more money. So if they're doing that, and that's the scenario here, then if they have higher taxes, they're going to have less profits. So they're either going to have to raise up the prices of their goods, or they're going to have to cut costs somewhere, such as possibly the employees. So just something to think about there when you're looking at the corporate tax. Again, you're saying, well, tax them big, but if you're employed by them, maybe you're like, hold up here. Let me see how this is going to affect me.
It's definitely going to affect wage growth for sure. And by the way, if you look at wage growth right now, it's kind of like an exponential increase, because after we came out of COVID, all that inflation, well, companies made more money. So they did pass on some of that to people. I see clients all the time. They're like, got a big raise. I got another raise. Yeah, that's not going to happen if we raise the corporate rate to 28. I also don't think, honestly, it happens if Trump lowers the corporate rate to 15%, because what does that do? That makes them able, unless he gets rid of the flat tax on share buybacks, that makes them able to buy back more shares. So I don't know. I mean, that would be how I would be thinking as a public guy.
Well, and it's an interesting one, yeah, for sure. Because also, there's the argument. It's like, well, Jazz,
I found the sticker.
It is an interesting one when you're talking about corporate tax rates and how it can affect you immediately or eventually. That's something you have to think through. But I was trying to figure out where I was going to go with that. Oh, and I think the one interesting thing here, though, that's not really being talked about in general, and it's not something that's been talked about this entire election, going back to really tax rates in general, is the debts that the country has as a whole. And how are we actually going to solve that? Because everybody, if you really look at the plans of everybody financially, one thing is going to cost more here, one thing's going to cost more here, one thing's going to, be less here, one thing's going to be less there, but nothing's really putting a dent in anything. And so is it going to help if we cut taxes on corporations or not? Maybe not. But at the same time, if we're producing more in the US, will that be helpful? I don't know. I'll leave that to the economists to argue, or you to let us know on the chat.
Yeah, I personally, it's a big deal to me, because all the candidates through history, they all say, we need to change this tax rate. We need to charge these people more. We need to bring in more revenue. Oh, I don't like that answer. I mean, bring in more revenue. Like, do something well with the revenue you have. Don't be wasteful and sending it everywhere. So the whole tax side of it gets me fired up, because I'm like, hey, what candidate's going to be like, let's just make a budget. Like, let's just line it up, see what we're doing. I mean, I know they do, but you get what I'm saying.
every budget's, in the negative. So no matter who it is. All right, marginal tax rates. So Harris is saying reset the top marginal tax individual income tax rate from 37 to 39.6. Tax long-term capital gains on individuals making more than 1 million per year at 28% rather than 20%.
Yeah, I hate that.
But a
Now,
bunch out there.
and everybody thinks like, oh, it's the people that make $1 million, like, oh, they can afford to pay it. No,
Tax the
it's the
rich.
people. Yeah, I get it, but it's the people. It really, to me, hurts a lot of small business as well. Because what do? You start a small business, you grow it over the years, you do your thing, you sell a chunk of that business, and you make a capital gain of $1 million, and
Yep.
that's you. You're the one that's going to pay that. And to be fair, I mean, $1 million is a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money to the guy that spent 20 years building a great business and now has a lot of value in that business, who's probably counting on all of that for his retirement. 28%.
Absolutely. Yep. Nope. You hit the nail on the head with that one. I'm in the same boat. I mean, we're small business owners. We see how this works. So, if you make over a million, anything over the million in long-term capital gains is going to be 28%. Maybe raising that. I'm not opposed to, the ultra wealthy possibly. I mean, Warren Buffett's talked about that. Well, tax me a little bit more. So, depending on where that would be, but, killing the American dream there by taxing the 1 million. All right. So
It's a different strategy. That's a whole different thing when you get into carried interest and things like that. It's like, okay, well, that's the focus. Maybe get rid of some of that loophole type stuff. But where does it end? Remember, it was capital gains were 15%. Then it went to 15, and we'll break another little category into 20. Now we're going to go 20 and then add a 28. It's like, no, go find the 8% somewhere else. Leave me alone.
And if you're watching this, you're like, wow, you're really one-sided on this. We're only talking finances here, just to let you know.
Dollars.
So
I don't. Yeah,
that's exactly what we're looking at right this second. So let me talk about Trump though here. So marginal tax rates, he's gonna make the lower Tax Cut Jobs Act top marginal tax rate of 37% permanent. Is that good though too? Like, do we need a higher bracket for the sake of the ultra wealthy that are really making the money? And, if they actually are making, $50 million that year, could they afford to pay a little bit more than 37%? I mean, if you're in California, you're already paying a high tax, but what's that there to, again, help with the deficit? So there's things that can be argued on both sides, but if you're looking at, the marginal tax rates, the lower side of that, you're voting one side versus the other.
A fascinating study in Singapore where the way they tax is they have a consumption tax. So I've heard the argument here from some politicians where they say, well, let's have a top tax bracket and agree at 35 or 37, whatever it is. But instead of having another one or charging even more, let's do a consumption tax on every dollar after that. So if you want to go buy a $500,000 Lamborghini, that's where they'll get the tax. I see both sides of that where they're like, well, that would maybe disincentivize people to go spend more money that make a lot of money. Probably not. I don't know. Maybe it does, but just ideas. Like instead of just saying, hey, we need to raise tax, we need more money.
Great ideas.
Just do something else, especially getting your dough straight.
I know some people are not going to be happy in the Medicare years on this one that, some of our clients specifically are like, they already don't like, the Medicare tax. There's the IRMA tax. If you make too much money and you're retired, you could potentially pay more on your Medicare. So there's something there to be said. But Harris is saying on Medicare tax, they're going to the proposals to increase Medicare tax rates on investment income earned by individuals from 3.8 to 5%. Now, do you quite understand exactly what she's saying there? Because I'm not sure on what they're leading to when the investment income earned by individuals that they're going to tax only for the Medicare tax rate. I don't know if that's is that the IRMA tax that is coming into play here. We're going to be increasing that.
Yep. That's exactly what that is. And one of the ones that I'm not, do we see it? Is that one of her proposals? Because I'd like to give her credit if that was, it was Trump though. No, okay. Well, I don't want to seem like I'm always picking on her, but excluding overtime wages and excluding Social Security income from being taxed.
Yeah.
You get on board with that, right?
Yeah,
I mean, especially because all the retirees that we deal with, they never raise the amount, $34,000, that you hit to start getting taxed on Social Security, but every year your Social Security goes up. That's the game that they play there if you haven't never seen that math. And the fact that somebody, a candidate, Trump, or it could have been anybody, that says, hey, when we look at that, like, why are we taxing people on that? Yeah, all right, I can get on board with that.
Yep. Let me see. Let's check this one. No, I agree there. So, well, they both did say that they were going to look to cut. What was that?
Taxes on tips.
Taxes on tips. There you go. Yep.
Yeah. So she is taxes on tips, and he said that as well. I don't know who said it first. And then he is Social Security income, no tax, and then depends on who wins in Congress there. But he also. Oh, did I lose you? There I go.
I'm back. You pause for a sec. Yep. There you go.
Ask screensaver. He also
testing live stream.
Overtime wages not taxed. And I don't remember, it's on the list here somewhere, but I don't remember if that's in its entirety. But I thought, well, how does that not get more attention?
Yeah. So she's saying no proposal there on overtime wages. He's saying exclude overtime wages from income tax.
See, I don't think it's all of it though. I don't think he was going to say go work another 40 hours and that'll be tax free. There was something there.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that. And then tip income, we'd both mentioned, exclude the tip there for both. Exclude tips from income tax.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like, can we just do that? Like that's one. If they both we both want to do that. Day one, whoever wins, you said you want to do it. Let's shake hands, make it happen. God, that would help, especially in Florida. We're so used to seeing a lot of service work down here and hospitality and everything. That would be huge.
And service work always seems to be the ones who catch the bad side of everything. When COVID happened, they're completely shut down. Don't get to work at all. Some of us were working remote. Hurricanes here. When the disaster strikes, they shut down. The business. It's the service workers every single time. So yeah, that would be nice to see. It's like, hey, we both agree on it. Let's make it happen. But go ahead.
No, I was going to say, lastly, this would be a fun one to take this and just sort of like archive it. And no matter who wins, come back and go, how much of that happened?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of great promises.
I agree. Lifetime estate gift and generation skipping tax exclusions. No proposal for Harris. Trump says make the Tax Cut Jobs Act exemptions $13.6 million for 2024 permanent. So basically having it there so you can pass quite a bit of money to your children without having a large tax bill there.
Yeah, and because after 2025, that's supposed to get, or as it stands now, after 2025, that gets cut in half. And a lot of people look at that and think, well, okay, these rich people with this. No, again, think of the people that are farmers and built this amazing farm business, and now it's time for them to retire or sell a piece or give a piece to their kids. Well, okay, it could be worth a lot of money. We all aspire to do that.
I know a gentleman who has a ranch that he inherited. He doesn't make a lot of money, but he literally puts the beef on the table. He's selling the cattle. He's got, hundreds of heads of cattle, and, the ranch is worth a ton, but he's never cashed in. Instead, he's always worked the ranch and been able to, do that and, make a living for himself. He's sitting on a gold mine, but if he were to just get rid of it, maybe he'd have to pay his fair share, but looks like he's, depends on where this goes on that. All right, home buying incentives. Harris says enact $25,000 first-time home buyer down payment assistance, and Trump has no proposal. So let me ask you on that. I'm kind of curious because first-time home buyer. As a first-time home buyer, I do like the incentive here that we offer something and try to help people. It kind of goes back to everything. Even what I'm talking about, everything in what I'm looking at here is okay. What's helping the deficit? What's not helping the deficit? If we're giving $25,000 everybody buying a home, I'm sure there's going to be qualifying things there. You probably are going to have certain income thresholds, hopefully things like that. But I don't know. I'm kind of torn. I wish when I bought my first house they gave me $25,000.
Actually, when I bought way back when I bought my first house, the city had a deal, and I believe it was $2,500. It wasn't much in the grand scheme of things, but since it was a new starter home for me, that was a lot of money towards closing costs. And I don't remember why, but we just qualified for it. I just think, okay, less things about the government giving money. There's too much room for fraud there, and they're inefficient with it. And more things about, hey, I tell you what, first 10 hours of overtime, we're not going to tax. Or I'll tell you what, if you happen to make some tips or you're going to drive for Uber or whatever, we won't tax that. Like chip away at it from a different angle, so that the individual can say, well, I have more money in my pocket, therefore I can buy my first home. Instead of going, well, I don't really have enough money to do it, but they're going to give me 25 grand and I kind of qualify, so let's make it happen. So I'm one of those that's like, don't fix the problem, chip away from the outside and let people be able to solve their own problems, which wouldn't be
Yeah.
problems, I guess.
I was a member of Rotary International.
Yeah.
I was a member of a local Rotary group, and part of their really ideas of their projects were to not just give money. It was something that would kind of be able to continue on. So they were going to put in wells. Well, the wells would be able to produce from their clean water, different things like that in projects. So it's not just like, hey, we're just going to give you some money and just let you do. Because like you say, I mean, that could even make somebody make a bad decision with it. Hey man, I can get 25 grand towards a house. I'm going to go buy a house when you really maybe shouldn't buy the house right now.
Yeah.
So something to think about there. High net worth individual tax planning techniques. So Harris says reduce or eliminate tax benefits involving certain annuities, private placement life insurance, 1031 like kind exchanges, and carried interest. So real estate people are going to not like to see that 1031 like kind of exchanges because, generally speaking, you can do a 1031 exchange. You can now push the earnings into another property. Trump doesn't have any proposal on that. So that's one, you'd definitely be taxing some people on that one.
It's a tough one too, because Hillary in 2016, she ran with that exact same proposal. And I don't know I don't know if she wins, would she do it or could she do it? But I don't think people believed that was a real proposal.
Yeah.
And so I think that one doesn't bother me as much. If Harris wins, I'm just not even sure that would get done. So
That'd be hard to push through Congress because how many of them are doing that?
yeah,
1031s. So,
affects all of them.
yeah.
So I'm not worried about that one.
What about tariffs? Harris says no proposal. Trump says impose 10% baseline tariff on imports, 60% tariff on imports from China. So China. Had to say that. Is that weird?
Sure.
But okay, so I mean, really, at least if nothing else, we're kind of maybe pushing some money towards the deficit. There's arguments on both sides of this. I mean, one thing I will say though, with this, if it comes up, remember when that was getting enacted prior? When we were looking at that, there was a lot of volatility when he started talking tariffs. There was a lot of volatility in the market. So that is something, from the finance side to be aware of, depending on who's in office. If he's in office and starts talking the tariffs, there's going to be some bumps out there in the road. It looks like if it repeats what it did last time.
Yeah, it was volatile. The market was volatile. And I actually disagree with him on this one because if you're saying you're going to put a 60+% tariff, which by the way, he went up to 100 on that. So at 100% tariff on Chinese imports, I get that you're trying to be tough, but you got to do it from a position of strength. And if we don't have the manufacturing abilities here or haven't incentivized that, okay, then we're all just going to pay more for the tariffs. So I would rather see something that's, hey, we're really going to get a lot of manufacturing back here in the US for everything, picture frames to semiconductors, right?
Yep.
But then come at them and go, hey, now we have a position of strength here to really fight back. So not my favorite.
This one, though, we talked about would be cool. Part of it, at least, business tax credits. So Harris says enact neighborhood home credit to incentivize construction of single-family affordable housing. That's one more, depending on, oftentimes those are driven on location. I don't know, I won't speak directly because I don't know enough about that, but oftentimes if you build in certain areas, it's helping to try to bring that area up. They're wanting to put new homes in there and things. And if you're willing to do that, then you can sometimes get some credits. The other is initiate, this is also Harris, initiate America Forward tax credit to promote investment and job creation in critical industries such as AI, data centers, and clean energy. She also had with that, remember, I don't see it on here. Oh, no, it's down here. Okay. Let me jump down to this one as well, since I'm touching on this. Limit on immediate deduction for startup business expenses. You can increase it from $5,000 to $50,000. So basically helping, new businesses get going there. So that was one that we had talked about, having some opportunity there. That was pretty cool, being small business owners again and seeing things like that come into play.
The first part of that, I'm gonna play both sides here, but the first part of that, the neighborhood homes credit to get people to build apartments and homes and duplexes or whatever in areas they may not have. Yeah, that already exists. That's called the opportunity zone. So that was, I don't know if that was Trump that did that. I believe it was, but
Well,
yeah,
there's
it's already
things
there.
Been around for a long time with that. There's been different opportunities and even like grants. I don't know if it's state of Florida because I know there's stuff in the state of Florida. I know the city that I used to live in had a lot of that where they would have grants from the city. I don't know if that was backed by the government or not.
Yeah, the opportunity zones, officially a Trump thing there. It looks like I remember Mike Pence standing, or he got some attention there because he had the map of the United States and he was like pointing at all the opportunity zones there. And then, wouldn't you know it, I'm driving to work, maybe not the best part of town. There's a brand new apartment complex there, and now there's one going up next to it. So, huge tax breaks there for being able to carry forward capital gains.
Yeah, and then business tax credits. Trump says repeal the Inflation Reduction Act. So that was a big one that Biden pushed through, and he's looking to repeal that. That seems to be that every time though anybody enacts something, and then the next president's like, this has been like a a fight, always canceling each other out. So that's what he's looking to do. And then also no proposal on the immediate deduction for startup business expenses there.
Yeah, the Inflation Reduction Act, if you've ever read it, it is not an inflation reducing act. Like it's everything about giving chips or buying from the semiconductors companies and giving money to Taiwan for some reason and getting more bonus depreciation on your jets and your airplanes and stuff. It's fascinating to read. So I don't know that they repeal it. I have a feeling they'd be like, well, we're going to take it back, but then we have our own idea here. And it's essentially just a watered down version with all the goodies for the wealthy, which not complaining.
Seems to happen.
Seems to happen. All right, child tax credit. So this doesn't break it down exactly. It says 6,000 credit for newborn children, and then Trump says 5,000 credit. Harris says 6,000 credit for newborn children. It's an interesting one because there's a credit that you get on your taxes. If you don't make too much money, you get a credit on your taxes for having a child, and each child you get more. You get additional income up to so many children. What's interesting here is, the 6,000 credit for the newborn children. There's the argument that there's not enough children. So was it China that really was having some hurdles here, and they're behind the curve on everything when it comes to having enough children to continue on the country and try to sustain, I guess, their system, their government. And so isn't that kind of the same idea here? Because when it comes to Social Security, the risks of running out of Social Security and all this, well, if we have enough children, then potentially there's that. Though Elon Musk also has the argument that, was it Elon or who was it? Was it Elon that said that, the perfect world has like so many billion people and that's it? We were already over that mark.
Well, then, I mean, he's got a bunch of kids, so I'm not sure how he makes that comment.
I maybe it wasn't Elon. If you can find that, if somebody's watching this, I know this is something that's kind of went long. We're just kind of chatting. We're testing this all out too. If you can find that, let me know who it was that said that. I remember there was like a certain number of people that they wanted in the world. So child tax credits. So nothing too crazy there. Tip income we covered, overtime wages, Okay, social security income's the last one here you touched on. Harris says no proposal. Trump says exclude social security income from tax.
There'd be a lot of people happy about that. All the retirees would be thrilled.
Just do it. Most people that are younger don't realize that is essentially a forced retirement system that was put into place. That's your money. That's not the system's money. So you were supposed to put in $1, get that dollar back. And it was not supposed to be, we ran out of money. Where'd it go? Because I put my dollar in for my paycheck. I'm supposed to get it back. You're telling me there's not enough there. That's a mismanaged system, and not always, but it has been. And so, yes, eliminate the tax on that, and let's start chipping away at the problem from other stuff. That kills me, because if you're older, you remember that process and how everything was set into place. You go, okay, this makes sense. If you're younger, you're like, it's not going to be there for me. It's not a right, or it's not a government handout. It is your dollars. That is a right that you are given. That dollar comes back to you, and you're telling me we're having troubles there? Don't tax it.
I always tell people talk about Social Security. Well, what if it goes away? And I mean, there's a bunch of arguments one way or the other on this. But I say, if you really want to see unity in America, take away Social Security for everybody. Yeah. Everybody will be angry.
Tell me it went insolvent for a while. Go ahead. Yeah. That's not an issue.
So these are just a few things, but I think we're going to be kind of plugging on some of this too, just kind of chatting through it as we watch the election coming up. We're going to do the live on that. So what time do we have an idea of what time we're going live, or are we still nailing that down?
Yeah, I think we're going to start around 8 o'clock. We'll be streaming live on the channel, and it's not just going to be election talk the whole night. We're going to do a whole series of different lessons, a bunch of data as it pertains to the actual elections and the futures market. And then, of course, we'll follow along. And I think the office, we've decided, we might make some bets on, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, things where the states are a little bit closer and have some fun, right? Bring a drink, hang out with us.
And make a bet for how long I make it. So I generally don't stay up too late.
We'll have your inflatable mattress ready to go for you, sir.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you for watching. As Dustin always says,
Go straight. Adios.